Welcome to this episode of Intellectual Conservatism. Today I'm here with my good friend David. Okay, David, how do I say your last name? Is it Pallmann or like Pallmann?
The second one is closer, but yeah, Pallmann.
Pallmann. Okay, Pallmann. Okay, so Pallmann. Oh, it's so good having you on. I think I've had you on to debate the Calvinist Stephen Dunn. Although, I don't want to just say the Calvinist Stephen Dunn. Stephen Dunn, great human being, good friend of
Yes.
mine, good friend of ours. I don't think I've had you on aside from that. But David, what have you been up to lately? Tell me about any ministries you got going, any projects you've been working on. Obviously, you are the Calvinist, or you are the Molinist that Calvinists love.
I've been well, yeah. Lately, I've kind of been going more into just apologetics between theists and atheists, particularly the topic of miracles or the possibility of justified belief in miracles. That's what I've been studying lately, but also done a little bit of studying on the Old Testament. Finally, I haven't been into Old Testament studies really since ever, but yeah, this year I got a little interested in it. So yeah, studies on kind of how to understand Noah's flood, how to understand Old Testament violence. But yeah, no, my main research area right now has been the possibility of justified belief in miracles.
Yeah. So are you right now active in a YouTube ministry, or you're kind of just, you're on social media, but, I know you still do debates and stuff like that, but do you have your own page now or?
I have my own YouTube channel, which would be Faith Because of Reason. If anyone
Okay,
wants to
cool.
check that out, I don't, I just kind of turn out videos as I feel like it. So there's no regularity with me because that's just how I am.
Yeah. And let me ask you, did you watch the most recent debate between William Lane Craig and James White?
Oh yes, I did. I played a drinking game while I was watching it. As a
Oh,
matter
that's
of
right. I
fact.
remember that post. Yeah. So how was it? How do you feel about it?
Um, Yeah, I kind of wish it had stayed on topic, but on the other hand, it was fun. My opinion on it was we learned that James White knows how to beg the question, both in favor of truthmaker maximalism and in favor of his particular reading of biblical texts. And to me, the sad thing was it seemed like he wasn't even aware that he was actually begging important questions
Yeah.
in those areas. And I don't say that, of course, hate on James White. He's done some important work, but I think on that particular area, he might just be a little blind to his own biases there. And so, at any rate, that's how it came across to me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I enjoyed the debate. I thought that, so just to talk a little bit about it, I thought Dr. Craig, I thought Dr. Craig did a good job of kind of establishing that, these counterfactuals of freedom. Like, as you pointed out, this maker maximalism, kind of that rebuttal to James White was pretty good. And then I really liked when James White brought up, because this is kind of an intuition that I have that, okay, if I was born in a different place, or if I had a different life history or plan or whatever, it really wouldn't be me anymore. I've had that kind of intuition, especially because I support kind of Vince Vitale's non-identity theodicy, where he talks about why circumstances are so important in making up who you are as an individual. And so I was kind of like, yeah, well, I like both of the points here. One thing that kind of annoyed me, so I think like one is that I think Dr. Craig, he could have pressed a little bit harder on scripture. I think he was doing a fine job, but I could tell, like, okay, do you ever feel this way, David? Like, do you ever does it ever irritate you when people use the Bible to avoid doing philosophy?
Yes,
Yeah, and
very
so
much.
that's like the precepts, right? So, or wait, the precepts, never mind. I don't know how to describe them, but yeah, that part irritated me a little bit. I'm like, no, Dr. Craig has given you an argument. Can you actually engage it, or, you know?
I've always hated it when people like try to put philosophy and scripture against each other, like they're in conflict
Yeah.
somehow. And that's not to say that conflicts couldn't arise and that we might have to revise a philosophical belief we hold, or we might have to reconsider our interpretation of scripture. But to the extent that we're willing to believe that both scripture and philosophy are guides to truth, then they should harmonize. And so instead of like saying, well, my dad can beat up yours, we should try to like find, we should try to hold beliefs that are harmonious with both.
Right. And even the passages that James White cited in favor of Calvinism, Dr. Craig said, I could interpret that just fine as a Molinist, right? And so that
Yeah.
kind of goes to the point that you were making, that it's almost like James White didn't see that he was just begging questions and so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah. I don't think he was begging the question on purpose, but
Right.
he definitely was.
Yeah, well, we've triggered some of our listeners now. So let me see what I have. So David, let me ask you now, just talking about our book collection, because you have a very famous knack for buying books, as do I, although yours is more famous than mine.
Because I
What
post mine.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you have any tips or tricks on finding books, and do you have any websites or sellers that you prefer over others?
Oh, let's see. I mean, as far as like buying online is where I probably buy the most of my books because you can find more there,
Mhm.
particularly if you're like me and you like books that go really deep on more obscure issues. Like most people probably just aren't interested in truth maker theory, or they're not interested in how you should interpret Romans 9 or something like that. So these issues that interest me, I do probably most of my shopping online. And yeah, I mean, I usually compare prices among websites. So, I mean, obviously, like Amazon and eBay are the two obvious ones. And then the ones that are a little less well known would be Abe Books and Thrift Books. What I like about Thrift Books is that they typically have the best prices. And even if they don't have a book in stock, you can add it to your wish list and they'll email you if they get it in stock. And sometimes if it's not a very popular book that's not selling, the price will like drop on it slowly. So you have to keep checking these things, check prices on these things. So there's a little bit of hands-on work there, but that's kind of my method. Is I just have like a master list on thrift books, which last time I checked, I think it was like 15 pages long.
Wow.
But that's where I add all the books that I want to have. And then if they're not available, as they become available, I can get them. But it's just a good way so I can kind of know what it is that I want. Because I mean, I can't remember all of the different books that I come across. Like, oh, I want to get that someday. So that's my method, and you could say it's madness too. But at any rate, that's how I make sense of it.
There's method to the madness, however. So David, do you use a book finder at all?
Not really, no.
Yeah. So like sometimes when I go on Bookfinder, it's a site that you can use to find all the sellers, right? Um, I like it a lot. It's sometimes helped me find the ideal price, but there are other times where I think Bookfinder like misses some important websites or some really good deals. And when I just went to the website itself, like for instance, Amazon's a great place to go. Was it Abe Books? I love Abe
Mhm.
Books so much, and a lot of the books that I have from overseas, international sellers, came
Yeah.
through Abe Books, and so I really enjoyed them. Um, yeah, and then some, okay, so this is a tip that I'd have for some of the viewers, David, and this is going to be funny, and I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but um, never go to the publisher's website and buy the book from the publisher. Because the publisher, when they're selling it at like full markup price, right? Barnes and Nobles too, don't go there. Yeah, never. Overpriced. But when you go to Amazon or eBay or these other booksellers or used books, or and you can find them in really good used, like new quality, right? Then those are better alternatives. One other tip that I'd give is that sometimes, when you're on Amazon and you see like there's the used section and the new section, and some people, they go right into the new because they want a book that looks new, right? Obviously, and is at a markdown price. But then if you go to the used section, you see the thing that says used like new, right? Which is just basically the same thing. And so it's like you don't want to skip over that. Or sometimes when you look at the description, it'll say like unread, unmarked copy in great condition. Even if it's called like very good, it technically would be like new. Uh, Man, I kind of sound like a Looney Tune here, but yeah.
We
What do
both
you think
like
about
to
that,
nerd out on
David?
books. Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I've Amazon in particular, they've got like one big price up there, and it's easy to like just look at it and be like, oh, that's how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the new one. So yeah, always go down, check, see what's used, and yeah, it will tell you the condition, right? So sometimes you want to be more cautious if it's like in fair condition or it's an acceptable condition.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You got to weigh how much do I really want this book, and in what condition do I want it. But yeah, no, if you can get like good, very good, like new, then yeah, I mean, if you don't mind having had somebody read through your book once before you get it, and that can save you, 10, 20, $30. I mean, in my opinion, it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't it annoy you sometimes though when you look at like the seller's description of the product and it just says like might have wear and tear or like, maybe a used library copy and you're like, well, can you tell me what it is? Like it's a gamble.
That's especially with like the big sellers who like carry tons of books, and so
Right.
they just got like these very general criteria. But yes, that is very much annoying. Especially, I hate it when it says it's in like acceptable condition
Mm-hmm.
and it's like water damage. Like, sorry, that's not acceptable
Yeah.
condition.
Yeah, and one time I bought, oh well, okay, so this is kind of going a little off topic, but I bought two books that were in acceptable condition and they're actually used like new. So I got lucky. I'll show you the books that I got lucky on. So this one is the Handbook of Jewish Thought by Rabbi Araya Kaplan. So it's volume 1 and volume 2. Beautiful, beautiful books, and I think there was a Jewish family who was selling them in New York and I bought them. And yeah, I mean, the books are in immaculate condition. I mean, it's just beautiful. They haven't been read. It doesn't have any sign of age. And yeah, and they said it was acceptable. That's a bit humble if you ask me.
Yeah, and you're a man of culture, I see, because you got hardcovers. So.
Yeah, I like hardcovers if I can, but paperback will save you money. Sometimes, not all the time though. Sometimes even the hardbacks are cheaper, but we're we're nerding out too much, David. Okay, so let me ask you now, why do you love books so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great way to have knowledge be transmitted. There are some people who like you wish you could get inside of their mind to just know what they know, and of course, we don't have a way to do that. So a book is the next best thing. It's a way to mediate information, and it's a way to mediate knowledge. And I think for anyone like you and myself who is passionate about knowledge, books are a must. I mean, obviously, not all books are, they're not all created equal, but there is such a wealth of knowledge in them, and so personally, that's why I love it. I love learning, and books are just the best way to do it. You can learn through other mediums, through lectures or just through having talks with people, but there's something about having it all written out, in full detail, and that there's something that's just for me at any rate the best way to learn.
Yeah, see, do you like having digital copies of your books, or like what do you think about reading the book digitally, PDF or whatever you use?
So a lot of the books that I have, I will get, and if I can get a free PDF of that same book, I don't mind having that as well. They're helpful if like I want to look up something or something, I can type in a word or phrase or something and find where it is in the book. But and even if a book's like really expensive and I can get a free or really cheap PDF of it, then sometimes I'll settle for that. But I really don't like to do it that way. Just for me, I like having the book, and I retain so much better when I actually have a book. So much so that I even on some like really expensive books or books that don't even exist as physical books, like you can't get them, but you can get them digitally. I'll actually pay somebody to print it out for me. Is how much I prefer to have it as a physical copy.
Yeah, so like who do you go to have them print out a book like that? Is there like a website or?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the specific one that I like. I know it's an English company. I think it's called Print My PDF. You just upload your PDF there. They print it out to you and ship it to you in like 2-3 days. I think of course, it depends on the length of the PDF that they're printing, but I've had them print like 200, 300, 400-page books, and it'd be like $13, $15, something like that, which is not bad at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm trying to get some Jewish literature printed out. I'm going to purchase the digital version, but I really want it hardback. So I appreciate the help, David. Let's now get into the books in our collection. So we're only showing the audience today 15 of the many, many books that we have. I'm pretty sure your collection is larger than mine. The bookshelves behind me, there are 4. Oh, well, so there's 2 behind me, 2 next to me. I think they're about 2/3 of my whole collection. Then the other third is back at my house in Kansas City, my childhood home. So yeah, so obviously you're not going to see everything that we have in our collection. Also, David, like, so are all of your books in the attic, or where are they?
So I moved recently, and so I got a house now, and so
Oh,
I
okay.
bought a whole bunch of shelves, and I got as many as I can in my room. I'm not in my room right now. I'm in this is the computer room, so no books are in here, just because we like to keep the acoustics good. But yeah, no, I've got shelves all over the house with my books in them. So at one point, yes, they were all in the attic, and I had slanted
Yeah.
walls, so I wasn't able to do shelves. So I just had them in
Oh, yeah.
stacks all over the room.
It's a lot of fun. How many shelves do you have?
Oh gosh, let's see. Probably around 10 or 11 at least. And yeah, plus a few stacks beyond that, because I could still probably I'm overdue to get a few more shelves put up.
Yeah. Okay. And also, doesn't it surprise you like how expensive shelves are? Um, I mean, it's just, well, it depends on the kinds that you have, but like, I'll show you. I have this nice one, this nice like wooden one next to me
Oh,
here.
those will cost you a bundle.
Yeah, and then these black ones, which are more useful utility wise, I think they're about $30 a piece.
At
So
Walmart, yeah.
yeah, at Target. I get mine at
Oh,
Target.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm bougie. No, I'm fancy. Like, no, it's good. All right, well, David, let's get started. So here's the first question: of the Bibles you own, which is your favorite? You go first.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, because the household I was raised in. So my dad was a pastor, and everything had to be the King James Bible. So he was a part of what's known as the King James only movement, and so we were taught that all other Bibles were from the devil, and that you shouldn't own them and things like that. So actually, most of the Bibles that I've owned have been King James Bibles, and only more recently have I started getting other ones. So my Bible collection actually is not as extensive as maybe it could be. But my favorite one that I have is this one. It's a genuine leather, new international, or rather, New American Standard Bible.
Yeah.
And the print is nice. It's got it's got the silver. There you can kind of see it reflecting, and that's probably my favorite Bible, just to read, and it feels nice. So that would be my favorite.
All right, so my favorite is also a New American Standard Bible, because like I think there's just an agreement that it is the most accurate of the biblical translations. So this is I'm trying to figure out what kind it is. Somebody told, like, I read, an elderly friend of mine gave it to me from his collection, and I'm trying to see. It is Schulier Bibles, New American Standard. So it's like a beautiful kind of orange color, leather, and then you have the Jerusalem cross in the front.
I was gonna say I like that.
Yeah, and then you have the Jerusalem cross right there as well. It's just really nice. It's beautiful. You don't usually see color. I mean, usually Bibles, they're black or they're brown, or maybe there's some other fancy color, white, blue. I've never really seen a color that's kind of caramel or caramel, however you prefer it. Yeah, so this is really nice. I like it a lot. Too bad it doesn't have what I think is the full canon. So because NASB doesn't do the Deuterocanonical. So
those darn Protestants.
Yeah, right. All right. So David, now second question: what's your favorite Erdmann's book?
All right, Erdmann's. I had to go through a lot, and it was a hard choice because I like so many of my Erdmann's books, but probably this one here.
Oh yeah,
Jesus and the Eyewitnesses. Can you see that? Is that
I can see it.
Okay, yeah. I like this one. It's his second edition. Richard Bauckham. It's his defense of the four Gospels having been written by eyewitnesses, and personally, I found it to be very helpful, very scholarly. I'm sure a lot of people will say, oh, Bauckham, he's one of those evangelical scholars, but I enjoy it. I think it's definitely, worth reading, regardless of, what position you take on the issue of the authorship of the Gospels. It's enormously helpful in our historical apologetic.
Yeah, I have the paperback on my shelf right here. Let me see, right there. Yep.
Now, if you were saved, Suan, you would have had a hardcover like me.
Yeah, if I was saved, right? I guess it wasn't predestined for me, though. So
You're not one of the elect.
yeah, right. So, okay, my favorite Erdmann's book is this chunky, The Gospel of Matthew, a socio-rhetorical commentary by Craig S. Keener. What I really enjoyed about this book is that it was actually recommended to me by Craig Keener himself. So I emailed him and I asked him for help on a particular citation in his IVP background New Testament commentary. And he told me to go look at this one because it expands a certain footnote. And so I looked at it and I found the information I needed. And so it was really helpful. So this is my favorite Erdmann's book right here. Look, it's a thick, thick book.
I was going to ask how much of it is the bibliography, because with Keener books, it's like 2/3 of it is the bibliography.
Okay, so let's see here. Okay, here we go. So the book stops at 721 pages, and then the bibliography goes from 722. Or we're not including the scriptural citations, right?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I mean, it's probably that doesn't add too much to it. But I was just curious if you could like show us what the ratio is. Like, where's the book end?
Oh yeah, sure. And then it goes into from the bibliography 722 to 871. So here's like, let's remember that. Here's like the book itself, right? The commentary. Here is all of the notes and all the sources he used, including this page. I should include this one as well. And then everything else is just index and scriptural citations. So yep.
Yeah, Keener is the man when it comes to citations. His books, a lot of them are worse than that. Well, not worse, but like the bibliography, I've had books of his, it's more than the length of the actual book.
Oh, that's funny. All right, you ready for the next one?
Oh, I am.
Your favorite Rutledge book?
Okay, this is one of the more expensive ones in my collection, but Internalism and Epistemology. See if I can adjust my light so you can see it better. Is that better? So
yeah.
Right, yeah. By Timothy and Lydia McGrew, was influential in my own, thinking about epistemology. And it's not a long book, but that would be my favorite Rutledge book. It's kind of it builds an alternative to sort of an Alvin Plantinga's sort of externalist approach to knowledge, and it defends an internalist approach to that. So it kind of lays the foundation for the sort of historical apologetic that Timothy and Lydia McGrew have kind of become known for defending, but that it grows out of the underlying epistemology that they build in that book.
All right. My favorite Rutledge book, The Metaphysics of Good and Evil by David Otterberg. Also one of the more expensive books in my collection. Rutledge prices are always high. Yeah. Let me see here. So this book is the first analytic defense of the privation theory of evil. And so David Otterberg, his first book with Rutledge was Real Essentialism, where he defended, the Aristotelian idea of essences, natures, and so on and so forth. And then in this book, he defends a metaphysical theory of good and evil, which is the privation theory. And so I know Cameron Bertuzzi actually had a post the other day about the privation theory. And so if he can afford a book that's over $200, then I'd recommend it. But I had my university actually purchase this one for me. So yeah.
Yeah, those Rutledge hardcovers are no joke.
All right, next question. Your favorite Oxford University Press book?
That was also a really hard one. I went back and forth a lot. This was the one I ultimately settled on, Necessary Existence by Alex Proust and Joshua Rasmussen. Again, it's also not a really terribly long one, but it's one of the more sophisticated, up-to-date defenses of God's existence from contingencies. So I found it to be a very helpful book and probably one of the best contemporary defenses of theism.
All right, my favorite Oxford University Press book is Making Men Moral by Robert George. And so the book is a defense of perfectionism, or the political ideal that the government shouldn't be morally neutral, but it has to take a stance on what is the good life and endorse a particular conception of the good life. So obviously, this one was actually pretty close to being my most controversial book, although, I said that I didn't want to repeat any of the books on my list. And so this still is my favorite Oxford University Press book, because I actually agree with a lot of what's in it, and also George's critique of kind of like hands-off liberal approaches to government. And so I think this is a great book.
Cool.
All right, David, your favorite Cambridge University Press book.
I almost picked a different one, but I settled on this one I read just this year, Knowledge, Thought, and the Case for Dualism by Richard Farmerton. It's like the whole book defends knowledge arguments for dualism. At the time, so it defends property dualism. I'm more of a Cartesian dualist. I'm guessing you're probably more of the hylomorphic dualist.
Yeah.
I guess so. But I think that Cartesian dualism and hylomorphism are probably two of the closer ones. But anyway, Farmerton has since become a Cartesian dualist, by the way. But back when he wrote this book, he was a property dualist. But it's a good, good critiques of materialism, good defense of dualism from an epistemological point of view. And so it's really well written. Farmerton's not always easy to read, but this is probably his best written book. And it's up to date, especially if you follow his work, like in epistemology and such. He responds to a lot of recent criticisms of it in this book as well. So it's just helpful from that sort of perspective too. But yeah, ultimately, anyone who's interested in philosophy of mind, I think it's a good read for them.
So David, how do you make time? Do you try to read your books, front to back, or do you try to just like find the chapters that are really important? Maybe you skim the others. Like, what's your reading regimen like?
Really depends on the book and why I'm reading it. So in general, I kind of would like to read from front, cover to cover, but a lot of times if it's a collection of essays, as you know, in collections of essays, they're not all created equal. So you're kind of reading it and you're like, and so, yeah, I might skim through it, especially in a situation like that. But in general, I do try to go cover to cover. But yeah, there are obviously times where I don't live by that rule.
All right, so here's my Cambridge book, and I think we'll actually agree that this is a good one. So The Principle of Sufficient Reason by Alexander Proust. Yeah, this is a good one. Was this like your number 2 or what on your list?
That was probably my number 3. My number 2 was Lawrence Bonjour's In Defense of Pure Reason. That would probably be my third one, though.
All right, well, still it's high up on the list. Yeah, obviously, I just one is that the work that's been done on the principle of sufficient reason by Proust and by Robert Kuhns, I think, has been so important for the case for theism, and also just showing that reality is intelligible and helping arguments like the Kalam and the theistic arguments for God. My only complaint is that the cover is kind of weird. Like, you notice that? Like, I don't know. Like, was yours also Cambridge Studies in Philosophy? Was that in that series? Okay, so then yours look kind of mysterious and fun looking. This one just looks like, I don't know, like a rejected aesthetic for a pizza shop or something. Like I don't know how to put it, but and also this thing right here, like, what is that?
Yeah, my copy of it looks the same way. That just used to, I guess, be the cover on the Cambridge Studies in Philosophy, because I got a lot of them and they've all got a little bit of a different decal there, but on all of them it makes no sense.
All right, let's see. Okay, so now this is kind of just more open. Your favorite, insert any university's name, university press book.
So I actually missed the part that it was supposed to be from a university.
It's okay.
So I should have. Instead, I thought it was just, for some reason, I read it as any publisher. So I chose the Springer book. This one I read earlier this year, Believing in Accordance with the Evidence. Yeah, sorry, I missed the spot part. I missed that it was supposed to be from a university.
You're fine. Wait, so what was that one about again?
So it's new essays on evidentialism. So you got essays for, against, challenges for it. So Andrew Moon, for example, has a essay in there where he raises like an objection to it based on dreaming and like whether we have justified beliefs when we're in a dreamless sleep. And he would argue that that's a problem for evidentialism. So it's a lot of like really up-to-date challenges like that are discussed in there. And so for people like myself who are inclined towards evidentialism, a lot of really good and important papers are compiled in there.
What do you mean by evidentialism?
So evidentialism, I guess you kind of could just broadly define it as the belief that the epistemic justification for any belief is proportionate to the quality of the believer's evidence.
Mhm.
But, you can parse that out in different ways. So I'm very sympathetic to like a Rochester type of evidentialism, like Earl Connie and Richard Feldman have defended, and more recently, like Kevin McCain has defended it. So that would be the sort of evidentialism I would more align with. But yeah, we could just say it sort of stands in contrast to like process reliabilism and such. Basically, do you think that beliefs are justified by reasons, or are they justified by processes that make them reliable?
Right. And then presuppositionalism would be like the antithesis of what you believe, right?
Presuppositionalism doesn't know what it wants to be. Yeah, I think most presuppositionalists are very confused because they will like want to ask how you know your reasoning is valid or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think that assumes a sort of process reliabilism. But if you were to appeal to like reliability, then they're going to say, oh, well, you're being circular. So sometimes I feel like the presuppositionalists themselves don't really know what they want. And that's because most of them only read Bonson and Van Til, and they don't read actual contemporary philosophy. So,
all right. Well, my favorite just university press book, this is by Hebrew Union College Press. It's called In the Service of the King by Nilly Sasher Fox. And so this book is probably, I think, the most up-to-date examination of the offices of the ancient Israelite monarchy. And so I learned a lot of things in this book, obviously, given some of my interests in the Davidic kingdom. This helped me a lot in my research. And so I really enjoyed the fact that, she's also a very critical scholar. So she says at some point that she thinks the Joseph story is just legendary. And that kind of, punched me in the gut. But I enjoyed reading it, and it helped direct me to other sources. And so I think she does a good job of just, bringing the conversation up to date, because I think it's such an interesting subject that shouldn't be overlooked.
Cool graphics designs on it as well.
Yeah, it's what is that? Yeah, two lions, I believe that is, on the front right there.
Oh, nice.
All right. Anyway, so next one on the list. This is gonna be fun. What is your most expensive book?
So I had two answers on that one, because there's one. There's one that I've spent the most money on, and then there's one that is worth the most, and I wasn't sure which one you wanted, so
go ahead.
So the one I personally spent the most money on is this one. It's called Christian Physicalism. Yeah, this one I spent like about $130 on it, so that's the most I've actually spent on a book. I had to send away for Australia for that one, because everywhere else I could find it was like closer to $200. So yeah, the cheapest copy I could find was from being sent out from Australia. So I had to wait for a while to get that one. The one I think that's worth the most would be this one, and we'll see if I can get that so you can read it.
What is it? Assessing the New Testament.
Here, I'll try it. I'll try it this way.
There we go. Let's see. Assessing the New Testament evidence for the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus, William Lane Craig.
Yep, first edition, hardcover of that. And according to Amazon, it's worth like between $600 and $400. I did not pay that much for it, but that's, at least if Amazon's anything to judge by, that's approximately what it's worth. I spent about $116 on it, so still a fairly expensive book, but considering what it seems like it normally would cost, I got a pretty good price on it.
Yeah, let me let's see. Okay, well, since you added in the one that's worth the most, I'll add in something myself. So let me see. Okay. I'm just going to check the price of something really quick just to make sure that I have the number right. Are they out of stock? Okay, let's see. Okay, there we go. Good. Okay, so the most expensive book that I purchased with my hard-earned dollars was this book. Here we go. It's kind of stuck. Okay, The Gospel of Matthew and Judaic Traditions by Brill Academic Publishers. Brill is brutal. I think is Brill the most brutal? Maybe Wiley Blackwell is up there too.
Some of the Springer books are also pretty.
Oh, Springer, yeah.
Springer gets pretty bad too, but yeah, no, I definitely Brill is is up there.
Yeah. So Brill has a lot of stuff on Judaism and early Christianity, which is a topic that I'm really interested in. When I saw that there was this commentary, I wanted to buy it. And it cost me $322. So it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think I had to, when I ordered the book, they actually had to make the publisher print a copy for me, because I don't know, maybe like not a lot of people were buying it or something like that. Obviously $322 would scare any reasonable person away, but yeah, well, this is my most expensive book, and it's, you know, it's written by Rabbi Herbert Basser and Marcia Cohen. And so Rabbi Herbert Basser, he's a Jewish New Testament scholar, and the book is just filled with citations from various Jewish literature. I know you can't really read that, but it's been a lot of help to me. Now, since you mentioned the one that's worth the most, I'll mention the other, like, second most expensive one in my collection. Okay, so you see those yellow books there? I don't know if I get them. Okay, so those yellow books there, they are titled Outside of the Bible, 3-volume set by the Jewish Publication Society. And the 3 books contain literature from around the time of the Bible, or around the time the New Testament and the intertestamental period. Whoops, sorry, let me fix my setup. Yeah, and that series cost $300, and my university bought it for me. So I didn't have to shoot myself again to do that. But yeah, let me just show you. I'll just show you one of the volumes. Like, big, beautiful book, really nice binding. And then this is I don't know which fragment this is that's on the cover, but anyway, it's a beautiful book.
Even the lettering on it looks like it's like embossed in gold on there.
Oh yeah, it's embossed in gold. You're right. So let me just kind of get the filter or whatever you call it, the light going. Yeah. So this is from the Jewish Publication Society. Very appreciative of the work that they do, and I mean, I don't know if this taints it or improves it, but it was endorsed by Bart Ehrman as well as like an awesome source for studying. And so I guess, like, hey, I mean, it's got scholarly support, even if it's a scholar you don't agree with
on a lot of things. Yeah. I mean,
okay, so those are the most expensive. Yeah, and then I want to get the Oxford Annotated Mishnah, but guess how much that costs?
Oh gosh, 400.
Higher.
500.
Higher.
700.
Lower.
600.
Yeah, basically. So it's $645. My friend John Smith, he showed it to me because he knew, I think this was on Facebook, and he tagged me or something like that. Yeah, look at that. $645. Like, and look, this is the irony of the whole thing, right? It says includes explanations of technical terms and impressions and reference. Oh wait, where is it? It says, an accessible version of the mission.
I see it's not even out yet, though. I mean, probably give it like 4 years after it's published, and you'll probably be able to find a copy much cheaper than that.
Yeah, well, maybe in 3 to 4 years, I might be a monk, so that might be a little tough. Okay, maybe my order, my province will have a copy. But anyway, so here we go. Next one: favorite biblical commentary.
Yeah, so I went a little unorthodox on this. So it is a commentary, but it's also it's like an exegetical commentary. So that would be, this is actually a one in a volume of 3. So it goes through Romans chapter 9. It's from T.T. and Clark by Dr. Brian Apaschiano. It's the most detailed study of Romans 9 that's currently available. And so I really enjoyed it because at the time I came across it is when I was really kind of into the Calvinism, Arminianism issue. And Romans 9 is a big, it's kind of the big bazooka text that the Calvinists have. And so Dr. Apaschiano was, of course, an Arminian. And so reading his work on it was really helpful to me. But even like that issue aside, it's just a really great example of how to do exegesis, especially in intertextual exegesis. because he goes, into all of the Old Testament texts that Paul is using, and he exegetes those texts and then shows how those give insights into what Paul is saying. It does great comparisons with what Paul says elsewhere, and of course, looks at the themes of the book of Romans. And so it's a really great resource, a great example of how to do exegesis, and it's very well written and such. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so you'd say it's a fair and thorough study of Romans 9.
Oh yeah, the most thorough that's actually currently in existence.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's crazy. All right, so my favorite biblical commentary. So technically it's a series, but I'll just pull up one book from the series. So it's W.D. Davies and Dale Allison's commentary on the Gospel of Matthew, their international critical commentary. It's a 3-volume set. So this is the first one's Matthew 1-7, obviously. They go into great detail about the authorship, transmission, in the first volume. Second volume, obviously goes through the chapters of Matthew again. Third volume goes through, 19 to 28, right? So yeah, really, it's an incredible commentary. And the reason why is because it's so thorough. Each of the commentaries are like 700, 800 pages long. And so you can really do some thorough study and go into really great depth, right, with a commentary of that size. And, even in some of my, Catholic apologetics work, it's really okay. So this might be controversial, but when I was studying something like the perpetual virginity of Mary, right, and what the brothers and the sisters of the Lord mean, like, are they blood brothers, cousins, whatever, or something in between, like maybe children from a previous marriage that Joseph had. This commentary was actually, I think it's actually the third one, or actually it might be this one. Anyway, the commentary was very fair in saying that it's really hard to tell from the text alone of Scripture, right, based on just Adelphoi, Adelphos, what the relationship is of the brothers and sisters of the Lord to Jesus. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I actually do think it's like some people look at it and they think like, oh, it's an easy question. But for W.D. Davies and Dale Allison, they're like, no, actually, it's kind of a complicated question, especially given how flexible, the concept of family was even during the time of Jesus. And so I just appreciated that nuance and that fairness. And also it's helped me in a lot of other areas in the Gospel of Matthew. I think it's the most comprehensive one we have.
Yeah, and I have some commentaries in that series, the ICC, not that particular one, but yeah, they are. I've always found them to be very helpful and overall pretty balanced.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Favorite book on an obscure subject.
Well, of course. No, I'm kidding. Not that one. Get that out of here. Yeah, that was a hard one because I've got a lot of books on obscure topics, and
right.
It's always like I can pick a favorite one among the books on that obscure topic, but like there's so many obscure topics, it's so diverse. So I don't know if it's my absolute favorite, but one that I settled on was this one here. Would be David Cretu's "You Mean I Don't Have to Tithe." I don't know if you can read that. Maybe.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. It's a really good study of, it's a biblical New Testament, well, not just New Testament. It's a study of tithing and, how it was used in the Old Testament. And I know that the title of it is a little bit punchy because he does argue against people who are proponents of modern day tithing. But it's a good biblical study, and he does take some shots at people like Gary North and such, which personally I enjoyed. But it's a scholarly study, and he just goes through every text, does really good exegesis of them, and then looks at logical arguments for it. But then he doesn't just end the book at okay, you don't have to tithe. Then he actually builds up a case for what is the New Testament teaching on giving, and builds a case that actually you can make a good biblical case that you should be doing more than tithing, that you shouldn't just be giving 10%, right? I mean, we're told to, Jesus told the rich young ruler, right, to sell everything that he had. So, he knows he's going to be accused of giving people an excuse not to tithe, but in fact, he actually calls them to do more than that. So he's like, yes, the tithing mantra, it's arbitrary, it's not biblical, but you are called to be a generous giver. And so I appreciated that about the book as well.
I like when, there are books written about subjects that are obscure because, for instance, when we tithe, we just don't really think about it. Like, like I think about the fact that I'm giving to the church. I'm giving some of my money, right? And I'm trying to help. But like a really deep biblical dive, usually you don't, I mean, like, I don't know, like I never really thought about how deep that topic could actually get until you just mentioned some of the thesis of the argument or of the author. So yeah, I appreciate that. I think that's really fascinating. And also, a funny question is what's not obscure in anything that we like, David, like compared to the world, like, and what they're interested
Most
in.
of these books we have mentioned have probably been considered obscure, but
Yeah, this is what we
I
live
think I
in.
think that, I think that particularly the topic of tithing, even among
Yeah.
theological and philosophical people kind of maybe in our circles, I
Mm-hmm.
still think that would be considered a more obscure topic, even among the eggheads.
All right. So my most how to put it, my most obscure book is Progressive Dispensationalism by Darrell L. Bach and Craig A. Blazing. So I got this book because I was interested in the relationship between the covenants. And obviously, I have some strong beliefs about, yeah, Jesus is seated at the right hand of the Father, obviously. He's also seated on the throne of David. And so I wanted to kind of find a view that supported that, but also showed, because I think that, it's interesting, in John chapter 4, when Jesus is talking to the Samaritan woman, he says to her, woman, there'll come a time, indeed, it's here now, right? And so Jesus often talks about the future, but then he says, oh, but it's here now. And it's like, it's a really weird view of time, right? And so I think that like the kingdom of God, the eschaton, in a sense, it's already here now, but it's going to be consummated or completed or finished when the Lord returns, right? And so I like this. I liked looking into this book because it kind of shared some of my intuitions about this. It's obviously relevant to some of my research on David's kingdom. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And was it covenantal theology, progressive dispensationalism, traditional dispensationalism, like all these other things. I never thought I'd get into it, but here I am now.
I may have to get that one because I have, puzzled over some of those statements myself, right? The hour is coming and now is,
Right.
I've always kind of been like, like his point is always clear, so I can get what he's saying, but like, yeah, kind of setting it up in that way has always raised some question marks for me as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what is it? There's another book called The End of the Age Has Come, and then there's Christ Absent and Present, a study in Paul's Christology. Both of those are books that I want to get as well on the subject. All right, okay, I got yours. Okay, so number 10. What is the biggest book in your collection?
It came out of my systematic theology library. I got a little
Um,
collection going. I thought it was going to be Wayne Grudem's. I thought his was going to win, but he
it's a fat
actually
one,
got
yeah.
beaten out. He got beaten out. Yeah, I got the second edition of his, and it got beaten out by about 200 pages by Norman Geisler's systematic theology. And it kind of makes sense because this is actually 4 books all kind of put together. And it's amazing that it's still this long. Like the font size is tiny, and it comes in at 1,664 pages.
Wow.
That's the biggest single volume that I have because I assume we're not including multi-volume books.
Yeah. Okay, so my biggest book is I gotta get it off my shelf. It is Matthew Henry's commentary on the Bible in one volume from Genesis to Revelation. Let's see. And this thing has 1,986 pages. So almost 2,000 pages. That's pretty impressive.
You got my top one beat by 300 pages there. So.
Yeah, and like my second place book was probably the Summa of Aquinas, my 1 volume version, and that was beat by 700 pages in this one. So that's a whole Harry Potter book. All right, next one. What is the oldest book that you have in terms of publication date or edition?
All right, you're probably not going to be able to see this one, but because the title is really faded on it, but it's called the Foundations of Our Knowledge. It's from it doesn't have an actual date in it, but I looked it up, and I think best I can tell, it was published between 1820 and 1850. It's written by Antoine Augustin Cournot, who was a French philosopher from the 1800s, from that period. And so yeah, it's an English translation of that book.
So 1800. That's how far back that was.
1850, 1850s at the earliest.
Wow, that's so.
Sorry, at the latest.
That's an antique, man.
It is.
Okay, so the oldest book that I have is Seneca by, let's see, Rabbi J. Newman. This is from 1950 exactly. And actually that's not actually that old compared to some other books that I could have probably had on my shelf, but this is the oldest one that I have. It's pretty beat up, as you can see. It looks way older actually. This looks like it would come from the 20s, but there you have it. So that's the oldest one in my set. It's about the ordination practice in Judaism. And so it's a really good book. I think it's the longest study that's just been dedicated to ordination in Judaism. Everything else just kind of treats it as just a small article in a bigger volume. This one is a whole book dedicated to the subject.
Wow.
That could be also my obscure subject one too.
A lot of these could be the obscure subject one.
Okay. What is the most controversial book you own?
Okay, hold on to your hat. New Age Bible Versions by Gail Ripplinger. And what's interesting is how she credits herself as G.A. Ripplinger, and she says that stands for God in Ripplinger, and she literally claims that this book is divinely inspired.
Why do you have that book?
Because it's defense of King James onlyism, and having come out of that sort of movement, a lot of them, this is kind of like the this is the Bible of that movement, if you will. And so it's funny. There's so many errors and mistakes and bad scholarship in that book. She says that God inspired it. It's kind of blasphemous if you think about it, because she's ascribing all of these mistakes that she made to God. So it is, I got it for free. I did not pay money for it, but it is a terrible book. But it's also really controversial. I mean, like she did one debate with James White over it, and she got completely creamed, and she didn't do any more debates after that. So it's just not a good book, but it is infamous in among people who are kind of into the King James only debate.
Wow. Dude, yours is gonna make mine just look tamed. So I mean, like I have this book here called Debating Religious Liberty and Discrimination, and it's an exchange between Ryan T. Anderson, John Corvino, Ryan T. Anderson, and Sharif Girgis. And so, the book is just about the scope of, religious freedom. So is there a legitimate ground for someone to, let's say, refuse baking a cake for, a gay wedding, and other things like that. And so the book is, I had a lot of fun reading this one, especially the back and forth. And so, I think this is a controversial book because of how hot the subject is, although they're very cordial throughout. There we go.
I wish the author of the book that I had picked was cordial, but she's not.
Yeah. That's why I said mine looks super tamed compared to yours. Okay, this is going to be a fun one. What is a book that you most disagree with?
Yep, Cornelius Van Til. Not only did I hate reading it because he's incredibly hard to understand. From what I did understand, I think I disagreed with just about every statement he made in that book. It's not a secret that I'm not a big fan of presuppositional apologetics, and he's kind of, the man who birthed it. So, what more can you want wrong with it? It's strongly Calvinist. It advocates for everything in epistemology that I strongly stand against. And part of it is it's so, kind of like this pseudo piety that comes off of some people. They'll say something really stupid, but they'll shroud it in pious sounding language.
Right.
so that it like sounds. I wish I could think of an example, but
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about.
plenty of examples out there.
Just when people will like say something completely ridiculous, but yeah, they'll act like but they're doing it in submission to God, and so that makes it sound good, and you know, you just cringe. I cringed a lot when I read that book. So
Okay, well, the book that I most disagree with is by Jerry Walls and Kenneth J. Collins, Roman but not Catholic. Obviously, it's their critique of the Catholic Church and the Catholic faith. And actually, I wrote my first paper that I had published. The second paper that I had published was, Roman and Catholic, a response to Jerry Walls. And I was responding to an argument he made against the papacy in this book, or at least two of them, and elsewhere. And so, yeah, obviously, this is a book that I will very much disagree with because I'm Catholic. All right. Anyway,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's see here. What is the most beautiful book in your collection?
Yeah, so I wasn't quite sure how you meant that. Like, is it beautiful and, you know, how you, in terms of how it's written, or just beautiful and how it looks? And I went with aesthetics, beautiful in terms of how it looks. And that would be H. Orton Wiley's Systematic Theology, Christian Theology. And it's in 3 volumes. So I got all 3. And it's a kind of hard book to find. It came out in the 1940s is when it was published. And it's hard to find. It's hard to find a nice copy of. A friend of mine actually gave me all 3 volumes as a gift. And like, they're in beautiful condition. Like, these were printed before you really had like the paper thin pages and stuff. So they're like all really nice. They just got like the nice old feel. They smell like, there's something about old books that have this kind of nice, not exactly musty smell, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
old
what you
books, they got that smell. They like, they got like the textured cover. And, they just stay open. When I open it, it stays,
Right.
And I hate it when I open a book and it's trying to close on me, So, I think aesthetically, those are probably my nicest books. And it's kind of impressive considering they, came out, they were published like 80 years ago. It's good that they're still like this nice looking, in my opinion.
All right, the most beautiful book in my collection is probably it's called Benedictus. It's Day by Day with Pope Benedict XVI. And what's beautiful about this book is, one is that, it's a nice little kind of black box in a way. Right. I like how it's not, it doesn't look like every other book. It's nice, compact. It has 2 tassels, 1 white, 1 gold. Let me see what else there is. Oh, and then and then I'll show you the contents of the book, but also the weight of it. This is kind of weird, but the weight of the book, I really like the weight of the book. It's not too heavy, but it feels compact. Okay, and then the pages inside are just, they're just beautiful, thick pages, reflective. The designs inside, like, okay, so look, this is like starting the month of August, a nice red page for August. And then today it's like December 8th. So let's see here, you can read devotionals that the Pope himself has written. And so it's really nice. And so it is, in my opinion, a very beautiful book.
Yeah, I would agree. Even the gold lettering on the front.
Oh, yeah. You always notice the gold lettering.
I do. Sorry.
Got an eye for gold. All right. Last question. Aside from the Bible, the book you go to most for theological insights?
Yeah, I was so tempted to grab some C.S. Lewis books here because I do love Lewis. Problem is I couldn't decide on just one from Lewis because I like his writings like so much. But the one I actually decided to go with was this one here, The Quest for Truth by Leroy Fourlines. It's unfortunate that Dr. Fourlines, he recently passed away, but he's kind of not very well known in a lot of circles. And it's unfortunate because he's a very gracious writer. He's very knowledgeable. It's very evident from his writings how much he loves the Lord. And he combines 2 things that I really appreciate, in that he has like a really rigorous scholarly approach to things. So he's not afraid to go, as deep and detailed as anyone else, but he doesn't stop there. So he never stops with just giving you a rigorous, detailed argument. That he always connects it to your own life, like to the believer. So it doesn't come like that. I don't like it when a book is like just all mushy gushy, stuff. But in some ways, he kind of earns the right to give you the devotional, if you will, because he's just gone through so much scholarly work, and then he gives you some application for your life. So like all scholarship, there's a place for that, of course. But then I never like it to be all Sunday school devotionals. So he's really done a good job, I think, of combining the intellect with kind of an emotionally satisfying sort of presentation of living out your faith. And so that's why I like his work so much.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I like that. I like how you said he earned the right to be kind of emotional and mushy gushy with you.
He showed me that he showed me that he had the grounds for it.
All right. So the book that I go to the most for theological insights, whenever I'm in debates or I have like a question about a verse or maybe, a chapter or something like that. Oh, I have lots of other books that I go to, like the Summa, Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma by Ludwig Ott, the Catechism. But I go to Craig S. Keener's IVP background commentary a lot because I think he does such a good job of giving an up-to-date and brief presentation of what's going on in scripture. And especially I've always found that this is like the book that I use as my launching point for more research. And so I really do think obviously obviously because it's the whole New Testament, it's not as thorough as like his commentary on the Gospel of Matthew, but man, is it worth it. I just it's for how brief some of the descriptions and commentary is, it's worth all the money. And it's like only less than $20 or something like that. And so it's a great purchase. Yeah, I love this book a lot. It says over 500,000 copies sold.
Yeah, well, I've got one of those, 500,000 copies. So I was going to say that's the first book you've held up where I'm like, oh, I have that one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny watching like us present our books and you get to see our personalities come through, like very much epistemology, me, like very much New Testament Judaism. Yeah, right. And sometimes stuff with politics and metaphysics.
But it's good. It means we got very different. Well, it's sometimes I think it reflects our backgrounds a little bit too, because you've got the one by Jerry Walls. I got the one from the King James Only movement. So it is interesting. I guess it supports you and James White's point that it's our influence, that it's our background and stuff that helps make us who we are.
Wow, you just made it full circle, David. That's incredible. You made this whole talk full circle, so I appreciate it, man.
It's
David.
my pleasure.
Yeah, David, I'll post your YouTube channel in the description. And yeah, I loved, having you on my channel to talk about this. Let me have you on again sometime, talk about something else, or whatever you want to do. Just let me know. I appreciate it, David.
All right. Yeah, I always appreciate the work that you do here. And thanks for letting me show off a little bit of my library.
Only just a little.